And with that, welcome to episode 1 of this project. That last one was more of a introductory type of episode where, I kind of give you like an overview of what's going on, but here I kind of cut halfway into that last clip and I'm going to go ahead and start episode 1 here. Let's do this in like a red color that I like. That one's alright. Welcome to MUPS. This is a conversation that I very shortly had with my co-let's player Brandon of what I should call this series. He's pretty confused on it yet, probably because I haven't uploaded any of it yet. When it came to this idea of making this whole like web series or whatever I'm going to turn this into, there was a phrase that I was always reminded of that my mom would say to me growing up as a kid. Anytime I was doing pretty well with something like technological or on a computer or in an art style type of environment, she would always say to me, "You're gonna surprise us someday." And or similar versions of that. But I decided that "You're gonna surprise us someday" is not a very good acronym to use for this, even though it was very inspirational for me. Probably for a good year I had this in my mind of Project Yigsis. Something tells me that's not really going to fly though. And so I came up with it just the other day to kind of twist the words a little bit. And this is basically her saying, "Make us proud someday." And that's what I've always wanted one of these projects to be, is something that I did on the computer that really caught people's attention, that had something to do with my creativity or my art of some sort. And so that is what I'm going to call this one. This is Project MUPS. And as always, I am on the wrong layer to be doing this. Woo! Let's go ahead and make a new layer one. So this time, instead of like last time in the preview episode that you just watched, I actually made some drawings ahead of time. I thought that would help me make them better, but as I go up this list here, you'll see them progressively get worse and worse. That's because it's kind of like a sim when they have so much energy to work on something that it only lasts for a certain amount of time. And some of these drawings I wanted to make good enough for the explanation that I started to procrastinate doing this again. So I thought, nope, don't do that. These are just explanation drawings. Don't worry about them. So in this episode today, I wanted to kind of give you a little bit of background information of what this world is. I was going to start drawing again, but then I realized I'm still on that layer. This world, I'm just going to give you a brief description so that you'll understand a little bit better at what I'm getting at when I'm going through the planning here. This world is, I always had it in my head as a to the sky kind of mood. Everything was, kind of bright colors. Things are high up in the sky. There's clouds. It feels very fresh air. And for the most part, it seems pretty happy. But down on the grounds below, that's where the monsters are at. That's where the darkness is at. When they go into caves, that's where that to the sky aspect really kind of disappears. And the characters in this story, they kind of try and bring that light into the places that they go. That's kind of just a metaphorical thing. They don't really talk about that. But that's kind of the atmosphere that I wanted for the show. I got a couple songs picked out that I really feel like match the tone of this, and I'd like to show them to you at some point. And then as well as I probably have a few like reference videos that I could pop up and kind of give you the idea of that. You know what? Let's cut to this last frame. I actually didn't draw anything on this one yet. I just put it up there to make sure I remember to talk about it, but I feel like it might be better to put it here first. You know what I might do? I might cut the music here real quick, and then Future Colin is going to put in like the main song he has in mind that kind of fits the tone of what I'm going for here, and he's going to put up some stuff on screen, whether it be about I guess I'll just keep talking over with it, but in this world there is the ability to fly on mounts. I know in a lot of games people like mounts, but anytime I've tried to play any other game than the one that gave me the idea for this show, they always put you on like an animal or like a dragon or you know, the weirdest mounts. Again, the ostrich. I'm looking at you, Aura Kingdom. Why do I have to ride an ostrich? In this game you could fly, and that was done with the use of hoverboards, flying brooms, eventually wings. But the wings were pretty rare, they were cash up items, and then my absolute favorite was hover bikes. And to be honest, the game that these came from, those flying things looked amazing, but they were quite boring actually. They were literally just a mode of getting around. And I'll be transparent with you, the game was called Fly for Fun, and flying was actually one of the most boring things in that game. But they were very important things for getting around, looking at the scenery, and showing off to other people what kind of flying thing that you would ride around on. And then, as well as if I run out of clips for that, I'll kind of show you some other things about like what the world should look like, or what it kind of looks like in my head based off of other things I've seen online. And so with that one out of the way, I will put on the Minecraft and Chill music again. If you want to know what this music in the background is, literally called just Minecraft and Chill. It's like a 30-minute playlist. And so then, as far as the world, every person has a class system. It's going to be based kind of like a video game. I didn't want it to be one of those shows like Sword Art Online or Log Horizon, although I do love those very much. Not even .hack, that one was okay. The behavior of the world is going to behave like a video game. It'll kind of be a little bit like Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, except a little less confusing and complicated, where their stats are like written on their back and like only certain gods or something can read them. That's too weird. They're going to start out as a kid, and they're going to be a regular human being. Get something going on screen, I guess. They're going to be a regular human being as a kid, and there's going to be some point in their life when I wanted to say when they turn 10, but that just kind of sounds like Pokemon. But they go through a rite of passage where there is someone high up in this world that goes around from town to town and issues all the new children this thing that's, so far in my head, I think I'm just calling it the system, where it's this energy from the world that kind of passes through people like a computer. You know what, give me a second to remember this. I forgot I would have to explain this. So let's start with this. There is an energy that is always coming from the world. It's just kind of seeping out of it. And this energy, there's something that exists somewhere in the world, probably real far away, that nobody really knows how to get to or is governed over by a powerful force, that takes in this energy and then puts it out in different ways. And this energy allows for things like monsters to spawn, and items to be created, and as well as with a person, if they have the system attached to them, it will flow through them and grant them the energy to use things like special attacks, sword skills, get EXP, level up, have a health bar that protects them, and regenerate themselves. And as they level up, it's kind of like the system trusting them with more and more energy that is being taken from this world. As they kill monsters, that energy just goes back into the world, and then eventually seeps back out with more monsters, allowing these people to get more and more powerful. I do have a reasoning for where this energy is coming from the world. It's going to be kind of in the twist at the end, so I don't really mind telling you right now. But there was going to be 3 separate deities of the world that kind of are like the gods of different factions of the world. There's going to be like the robot monster faction. I'm sorry, my drawing is not here today. There is the human faction, and then there is the monster faction. Rawr. And all 3 of these kind of fight against each other for rule over the planet. And at some point in history, the humans don't even remember this anymore because it's so long ago. One of these 2 defeated this god, and when one of them are defeated, their energy shatters and dissipates all over the world, and that's what this energy is. So even though, or I should say, the humans now at this point are living on a world that have giant mechanical monsters as well as giant beasts of the land. And these things are so incredibly powerful. The humans feel like they're on the brink of extinction. There's no reason that they are able to live on this planet without the help of this energy. And so they're using it, they're living by it, but they don't actually know what it is anymore. And at the end of the story, that's when it kind of comes into play. Every so often on this world, there is an invasion that happens, which is basically one of these guys deciding, I'm going to try and slaughter everything else on the planet and just make waves and waves of their monsters, just entire armies just roaming, destroying cities, and trying to essentially kill the other one so that it can be the only one. I think I have it set up to where if 2 of them are dead, that the last one alive will kind of take in all that energy and become some supreme ruler, and then that faction gets to have the planet. So that was a longer explanation than I thought when I was starting with this guy here. At a certain age, they go through a rite of passage where they are given the system, which is basically like if you've seen in Sword Art Online. I'm going to try not to copy this as best as I can, but they did such a good job with it, where they literally just hold their hand in front of them and swipe in one direction, and a menu comes up that they're allowed to use. And with this menu, it governs things like their pack space, their stats, friends lists, messages, notes, and stuff like that, as well as like a party menu so that they can keep that up and keep track of their friends' health as they're in a party venturing through dungeons and whatnot. So in that, once they're given that system, it connects them to this thing and lets them get EXP, do trades, collect currency, and things like that. And they go out into the world to do jobs for people, to help them with their living, whether they are someone who is also out there training to fight these invasions that happen, or if there's someone that is out there just trying to collect resources and help the town with their general living. So you kind of have 2 sides. You have the people that are training for war, and then the people that are just trying to help their town. And everyone's just trying what they can do to benefit, and because the world generates items and money on its own, it's pretty easy for people to go in and do a job for others and, you know, get rewards off of it, so it benefits everybody. There's going to be a small issue that I want to have come up every now and then, where what if a person like this is never assigned a system and they grow up without ever being connected to this? That'll get kind of interesting and confusing, but that's for a time other than today. And so once you have, or once you are given the system through the like event that comes through, and the like maiden or whatever comes through and assigns you to it, you will start as a classless person. You don't have a class. In some ways these are called like vagrants or vagabonds, but I think just like jobless or classless makes sense to me. You'll go through kind of like a little tutorial part, which is also part of the event when they come and give you this, is to say like, hey, we're on the starter island, Things are very weak here. Go out and try and make it to the end of the island, and you know, get some practice. My first island, I think I have a picture of it here. I might even put it up on screen if I can. Is this like kind of cool moon shape? They start at like this point of the island and just kind of work their way this way. They keep going. Things are getting stronger and stronger. And then there's like a cave system at the end that goes underwater, and that's kind of like their last part of the trial. I wanted to set up the island that way so that they can start and see off in the distance where they're supposed to be and think that's a long way to go. And then after they go through their little adventures here, they can stand on this end and look back and think, wow, look at how far I've come. There is the question on what happens if a person dies in this world. I do want them to, as much as I want to write a story that's happy and you know, friendly for everybody, I feel like the story would be a little bit lackluster if a few people didn't die in it. I want them to always be aware of the danger that's around them and not, you know, go too crazy. If someone does die, they die and that's it. There's no respawning. I still haven't decided if I want them to like actually bleed and break, or if I want them to just shatter into energy like this up here, which is what I think I'm going to go for. It makes the most sense. And then the whole, like, if people are never assigned a system, that's when they'll bleed and break, and that'll get kind of traumatizing. So once they've made it to a predetermined level, whether it be like level 10 or level 15 or level 20, 20 seems too high, I'm thinking 10 or 15, they get to choose a class, and that's what all this is over here. Yay, I finally made it. The class tree is going to be pretty similar to a lot of games where you start out as the jobless, and then you get to pick from, in this case, 4 different classes. Yay! And then you stick, so let's say this is like level 10, and then you work on this until you're like level 50. And then once you're level 50, you get to choose from 2 other separate classes. It's really exciting. These classes are basically like a weaker hybrid of the later classes. As far as what weapons you'll get to use in these, you kind of get like some basic versions in this one, and you get to try out a little bit of both skills. They do carry on over into this, so even if you do choose one tree path, you can't use any of this one when you've chosen this one, but you can still use what you got from here, so that's kind of, you know, it's a skill tree. And so, I think before I start on these, what I have listed over here in separate layers are these last ones. Essentially, you have the like guy who uses swords, axes, and shields, which at the moment in the game it's from we call them mercenaries, but I kind of want to change that name. I've always hated the term like warrior, because you could use like you could give someone a gun and still call them a warrior in a way, but that's getting too deep into it. So there's the people with the swords and the axes and shields. There is the people who do healing, who do kind of the assist class. Then you have the people who use magic, and then you have the people who are, this one's kind of a weird one. In most other games this is the gunslinger. So I'll just put range. They use bows and arrows, crossbows. I don't want them to have full-on guns in this universe, so I'm going to try and stick it to crossbows if needed. And there's this weird weapon that I want to have in this universe that came from the game that this idea came from, which are those gigantic Chinese yo-yos, or I guess in other cultures I guess they call them like Diablos, but there's an old ancient like Chinese weapon which is literally just a gigantic yo-yo on a chain that has like knives attached to it. And in the fan-made animations for this game that I played, people used it in such creative ways to just like wrap the chain around things, swing across stuff. They're kind of the people who can get anywhere, and they can kind of climb on things. The class is literally called the acrobat, so they can get places, do the parkour and things like that. So starting at the bottom, now we're here. I started with one of my favorite ones, which is the blade class. This drawing didn't go so well. The blade I should mention one more thing before I go on with this. I tried to give every class a thing that they can do that is dual wield. So which in this case he can dual wield swords or axes or hammers, or they can use something that requires a two-handed weapon. In this case I wanted them to have a like Masamure type katana, and they would have different kind of play styles depending on what they chose. With the dual wield sword or the axes, this is pretty much if they need to slash something, if they need to bash something, or if they need to crush something. They can kind of choose what weapon they want to use, but I think at some point they just will kind of stick to whatever weapon they have that is upgraded the most to have the most damage and whatnot. I want the blade to be the kind of guy that is like the master of sharp things. He can pull out all these weapons from who knows where and use them effectively in an instant. This guy is very fast, incredibly fast. He is also the DPS, meaning damage per second. This is the guy that really puts down damage very, very quickly and are absolutely terrifying because of their speed and damage. The only downside to these guys are that they have very low defense, and so they are often kind of considered as the glass cannon. They can definitely put out damage, but they cannot take a hit. You know, the whole like don't dish out what you can't deal yourself. That's this guy. He cannot take it himself. So that's when their speed comes in, where they can try and dodge things or get around really quick. That's how that one works. With the two-handed weapon, the Masamure sword, I wanted to have this be kind of a broken class where you don't really see people use this very much, because whereas this does extremely high damage, this side over here is mostly for just regular attacks, whereas this side over here is mostly for sword skills. And the downside with this one is that the sword skill for the two-handed sword over here is it takes a moment to charge, or like the animation that plays for it just leaves you standing in one spot for a little too long to really make up for their lack of defense. So anyone who is using the sword is trying to be kind of a one-hit kill kind of person. They want to defeat the enemy instantly so that they have no chance of being stuck in one spot with you know, being opened up for getting killed. I feel like I probably shouldn't have started with the explanation on this class, but I chose this to kind of keep this one a little bit more balanced, to where they mostly are going to be using dual wield weapons and they don't really have a two-handed play style. So that if they do try and use a two-handed play style, that there's a great risk to go with it. That'll add some options to open up story for it. And so next, on the other side of the mercenary side, is the knight. Probably my other favorite character or playstyle. You have the tank. He's the meat shield. He's the literal wall. He's got the heavy armor. He's got the gigantic sword. He can also use gigantic axes. You know, just the really, really big weapons. Those are his two-handed playstyle. They deal massive, incredible damage. It allows him to use sword skills that are AoE, which is area of effect, meaning he can hit multiple things at the same time. Just by bashing this into the ground, it'll hurt everything around him. He's got the insane armor, the insane hit points, to where he can sit there and just tank almost anything that comes his way. On the other hand of the dual-wielded playstyle, that is a sword and shield, so he can have a smaller one and a shield to increase his defense even more at the cost of his own damage. And this also will increase his mobility a little bit. He'll be a little bit faster moving around with these two, whereas he's very slow with these. And that's about all I have to say. This guy was a lot easier to explain. Also, very quickly and subtly, I've noticed in a lot of video games that I almost never like playing unless I have a cape. But more recently, I've noticed that I just want them to have something on their back that kind of defines who they are. So the knight, I want them to have a cape. The blade, I want him to have like a trench coat that's kind of flowing for the most part. Ooh, going too far. And then I'll kind of keep you updated on that as I go too. Next we have the acrobat class. This is the ranger side. Can also be known as the hidden, the sniper, the huntsman, the gunslinger, This guy is the one who stays in the shadows, uses kind of long range attacks. He's got the bow as well as the tiny other weapons for if he does have to fight up close. He's got the tiny dagger, the little kunai throwing knives and shurikens and like darts and whatnot. Those don't do a whole lot of damage. They're just kind of for his up close safety to use as he can. They're just kind of like tools. He's got the bow, whether it is a short bow or a long bow. It's up to him. I kind of also like the idea of a compound bow, but that'll just be their choice when they get bows. Then the two-handed side, I should also mention that the bow skills also have some AoE as well. The two-handed side is the dual-wield crossbows, which at the start I will very much make them look like crossbows, but in the higher levels I might kind of remove the bow part of it and make it look a little bit more like a gun. But I'm going to definitely try and add some sort of mechanical functionality to the look of them that kind of detours the thought in your head that says, oh, this is a straight up gun. Like I want it to still maybe shoot arrows or little pellets that, I don't know. I'm going to try and stray from gun on this because it just seems a little too steampunk, or it's just not fantastical enough for me. Then there was the idea of a two-handed crossbow, which I don't know. Those have never really tickled my fancy. I probably won't use that. Maybe it'll just be like a 1 or 2 item, like a rare item that only helps in certain situations but isn't really all that good anyway. And so lastly, their back item that helps define them is a cloak that kind of drapes over them a lot more. Next up, we have that weird class I mentioned. I don't know if you'll even be able to see this because I made it bright pink for some reason. This one, you can identify them as like the prankster, the trickster, the jester, the acrobat, the wild card. I still haven't decided on these class names. That's why I just kind of listed a bunch with them. This is the guy that uses the gigantic yo-yos, and maybe I'll put some pictures on screen. That'll be his dual-wield weapon, where he can sling these things around with chains, pull on things, throw things around, stab at things, get around the area very quickly. It's kind of hard to follow with your mind what these guys are doing, but since they deal with them all the time, that's why they're so good at it. Then their two-handed weapons, you have 2 choices. They can either get one gigantic yo-yo, which is kind of devastating. Then there was also the idea of them having like a little thing that they hold in their hand that's like a one-piece nunchuck or something, and when they're ready to use it, it summons a wrecking ball. So just this massive ball that they carry around. And probably the higher level that they are, the bigger this ball is, and has more spikes on it, or other weapons, maybe is on fire or things like that. And they can swing it around and just throw it around like a literal wrecking ball machine. These people are kind of pretty balanced on hit points, strength, and speed, just kind of all around balanced. They'll also have like the small tools to help them get around, but maybe not quite as many. And this one kind of focuses a little bit on the skills that they will get as the level 10 acrobat as well. I think I want to make it so that that's thoughts I haven't figured out. It's still going too far into this. I thought this explanation was going to be a little bit quicker for you. If you wanted to skip to the next episode, that's fine. It just depends on how much of this world you want to know about. Then next we are on to the medic, which I also made bright pink for some reason. I apologize. This one is the healer, the buffer, the coordinator, or the you guys better thank me type of class. They are the one that does all the healing, all of the buffing of their party, and you'll notice that I wrote something over here. For the two-handed weapon, this one's a little bit different. The two-handed weapon is kind of like their staff that they use that allows them to do the coordinations, direct where the magic is going, heal different people in different ways, and do the buffing and whatnot. She can also buff herself, heal herself. These people are kind of low health, but they're the ones you want to keep at the back of the party and keep them alive because they're keeping everyone else alive, so you want to kind of treasure this one. And then on the other side, I was wondering at first, there's some small lines in here, like what are they going to use as their dual wield weapon? and I put like bracelets, and I was going to say like, oh, I can't remember what I did for this, so that doesn't make much sense to me. I'll come back and figure that out later. And so I found out when I was bothered by this, I went back to my original notebook that I wrote like a year ago, and I made this the dual wield weapon so that they could have this and like a small shield at the same time. And then their two-handed weapon was actually a scythe, which I thought sounded so much cooler than what I had in my mind this last week. And they can either switch from buffing and healing to curses and damage with a scythe. In the game where I got this idea from again for life, a lot of the healers that wanted to put out damage too, they would give themselves all the buffs to move really fast, and they would put on like a big fist weapon and run around really quick and punch at things, which I thought was kind of cool. But I really like the idea of turning this like all things holy and nice can suddenly switch to this like demonic thing, going around with curses, like poisoning everything, doing bleeding damage, freezing things in their place for, you know, like little rooting systems, and then just running around really quickly with this massive scythe. I thought that sounded so much cooler. That'll probably get cooler into the high levels. Maybe when they start it won't be quite as cool. It'll just be like a stupid little sickle or something. I'm starting to get out of breath because when I get excited about things, I start to get out of breath when I talk about them. This is the drawing that made me procrastinate this video for like a week. This is honestly, I was losing motivation for these stupid drawings. This is the Knuckle Duster. He is the other side of the medic class, where he has some self buffs, but he can't really do a whole lot of healing with his party members and things like that. He mostly just buffs himself up and then goes around and wrecks things with a giant fist. He puts on these giant knuckles, and I was thinking he can either have this two-handed knuckle, which is just a really massive one that he carries one of, possibly maybe like a tiny vambrace type of shield to go on the other arm, but that kind of ruins the two-handedness of this all. And then on the other side, he can do some smaller knuckles that are kind of almost like brass knuckles, those things. They'll start out as like little brass knuckles, and then as he levels up, it'll kind of go up, more up and up the arm and turn into gloves. Whereas this one is just a tank on a fist. And then this one had the idea, I put shield with the question mark because I don't know which side I want to use a shield, but I feel like he should have the option of a shield. Then I can put up that picture. There's a picture somewhere of Link doing a cool pose with a shield that always reminds me of this one. This idea started out from the Flife game that I got the idea from, but then there was a DS game recently that I played that really added a lot more ability to the idea of this class, and so I think I might put on a clip or two on screen here of just kind of this class going here. I don't know if Colin did that. It might have just been silent and the music stopped, so that made it extra awkward. Let's do it again. Have I really been here for like 20-30 minutes? That's surprising. I'm so sorry. Moving on, we're almost done. The sorcerer, the wizard, the mage, the RuneScape noob. I'm sorry. Mages are the last two classes that I wanted to speak about, and they work a little bit differently than the other classes. The other ones I focused on, these guys have a two-handed weapon or a dual-wield weapon, whereas the mage, originally when I came up with this idea, was that mages were almost extinct. The last invasion involved some sort of plan where all the wizards had to work together, and it failed, and so almost everyone from the wizard community had died in it, and not a lot of teachers had remained, and so they were going to be a rare commodity to see. I originally had that idea because I didn't know how to do particles in Blender, and so I thought, how on earth am I going to make magic if I don't know how to do particles? Eventually I gave up on that idea. I still barely learned particles, but I found ways to do magic otherwise. And so I feel like this world will be a little bit unbalanced without them. I might put them a little bit on the back burner because in almost every game I've played, they're not my favorite class. Something about wizards, just, you know, you put the stupid hat on, you put this big bathrobe on, and you give them a stick and they run around and shoot pretty lights at people. That just never really interested me all that much. And so I kind of wanted to challenge myself with this class in this story. I wanted to redesign the idea of a wizard into something that personally appealed to me. So I wanted to get out some paper, forget everything I know about what people have written down for wizards in other books or other media, and try and write something that I personally like. And so far what I have is that they don't really need the weapons per se. They have just an innate magic inside them, which if I go all the way back to that first explanation, the magic that flows through them for their energy and allow them to use skills, they just have that in their hands. And so they don't need a weapon to use their skills. However, if they want to use something like a staff, the staff acts as an amplifier, or kind of like something that boosts their accuracy. So if they have a magic attack, they want to shoot some fire blast or something like that, they can shoot that out of their hand if they want. That'll do all well and fine. But if they want to shoot long range, their accuracy from shooting it from their hand is not so great, and you don't quite know where it'll land from far away. And so that's what you would need the staff for, is kind of almost like a stick that is basically a sniper rifle. So you can imbue the thing in your hand with the magic attack that you want to use and better aim it and shoot much further distances. And in some cases, the stats on the actual staff itself will boost your attack in the way that like an amplifier works. So it'll take the energy, go through the thing in your hand, and amplify it and make it sometimes more powerful and work at longer ranges. And as far as like, that's the two-handed weapon. I was wondering, should they have a dual wield type of thing? And then I just remembered that, oh yeah, that's their hands. If they want to fight up close with their hands, they can. There is another answer to this one, which I just put it into the next class that I'll be talking about. The sorcerer, the wizard, or the mage is mostly going to work off of elemental type of magic. They're the ones, you know, you can use fire, you can use fire, earth, water, avatar, or whatever nonsense. And then the one after that, I couldn't even get this drawing right. I had something in my mind. I'll just put that there. So this one is the other side of the magician class. This is the mind bender. In the game that it is from, it was called the Psykeeper, but I like mind bender in this one a little bit better. Illusionist, dark mage, something like that. They are going to mostly rely on wands, I think, because ever since I found this character and saw him do this, I thought, like before I saw this, I thought wands seemed kind of stupid. They're just tiny sticks. They're not menacing at all until I met this character, and that's why I just put a picture of him on screen, because my drawing capability was so small. I said I would keep you updated with the back items. This guy seems really great with the scarf, but I did also put that on the knuckle duster guy. The sorcerer, I think, just kind of has a hood that he keeps down. Jester, I think he was going to have like a backpack or something. Anyway, so with the mindbender, his one weapon is a wand. Whereas if he doesn't want to use that, he can use the magic he has stored up in himself and kind of keep it tied to an item. So he'll like have a ring on that allows him to use his magic, or he'll have a book with him, or he'll have like a headband or a bracelet. There's one item on him that kind of amplifies his magic for him, but he doesn't have to actually use it as a weapon. It just has to be on his person. And these are the kind of people, they don't use elemental magic. They'll just use like mind magic that hurts people. They'll use illusions, so they'll affect the area around them, kind of distort things in their favor. They can make someone think something is there when it's not there. They just mess with people, and they put up this kind of like dark magic that allows them to get their deeds done. In this world there will be some PvP, and so usually these guys just by nature are kind of the bad guys. It's mostly like being this class doesn't make you a bad guy, but anyone out there that is kind of a bad person by nature will go for this class because it sounds evil. And so that's what I got on that so far. Whew. So those are the classes. That is a little bit about the feeling of this world. If you don't mind, I wouldn't be opposed to hearing in the comments which one is your favorite, and if you have any other ideas. You know, this is something that I've been working on mostly by myself and with the people around me, my wife or my co-let's player. I should also mention that this world is kind of special to me because the game that it came from is actually the game I met my wife on, and so that's why this world is pretty special to me. I learned later on that the game had a lot of lore to it and a lot of plans and big ideas, but whoever they sold the game to actually run it just didn't care about it at all and just wanted to use it as a money farm. And so a lot of the stuff that they had planned that's actually in the files never got put into there, so I'm a little sad that something that really could have been something really great never got used. So that's why this world is special to me. So I always say, like, I don't mind comments, but I mean, if you have something really great that you think would help out, you know, I'd like to read it. I'm not going to guarantee I'm going to actually use it or not, but I mean, I would love to hear people's input on this. I know that this one probably was a long episode again. I didn't mean to do that. I wanted to keep these like 20-30 minutes. I thank you for tuning in and listening to this. And so at the start I said that I cut the video from last episode in half. I started to get a little bit into the actual planning of what I was doing. I have definitely written more stuff down on clipboard. I thought I was going to have time for it today, but I don't think I actually do. So the next episode you might see is actually from before I recorded this, or I might just scrap it entirely and start over with what I have on the clipboard now. But anyway, I thank you so much for watching and supporting me through this. And by support, I mean literally just clicking on the video. I just want to know that people are listening or watching this. Like I said, I can't get myself to work on these things unless I record it, and I'd like to record my progress so that I can kind of remember where I came from. Hope you have a good day. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.